great author with us today. The new memoir is called Just When You Thought You Knew Me. It chronicles our next guest's life of criminal behavior that actually began at the age of 6 in an attempt to win his mother's love. That led to time in juvenile detention and, in time, not one but 2 stints in prison. And eventually an epiphany and a journey to self-love and redemption. We welcome Victor Carrington here to Virginia this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
The book, I read it yesterday. It is a quick read. It is an engaging read. It is an honest book. It is very honest. You walk in truth in this book. When did you decide you wanted to tell your story so that others could learn what you've been through?
I didn't decide to actually put it out until last year, but people have been asking me since 2000 to write this. And so it started as a college essay in 2002. And I didn't want to be a writer, didn't want to be an author. But then a friend read the essay and figured, because it was just about one part of my life, and said, you need to fill in the blanks. So I went back for kicks and giggles one day, filled in the blanks, and it literally scared me when I printed it and read it. I didn't want to put it out.
Was it like an epiphany for you? Because you had to go back and relive all of this as you wrote this.
And it was a dark week when I finally hired an editor and we decided to put it together last year. It was a dark week to relive some of the moments in it.
Let's go back to age 6 and where this all kind of started. What happened that kind of started you on this life of crime?
We were in a grocery store, my mother, my sister, and I, and my mother put a pack of pork chop in my jacket and told me to follow her out of the store. And I did what I was told as a child, and it led from there. And from then on, it was whenever I knew she wanted something, I would do that. And it seemed to bring her happiness.
Trying to please your mother.
Correct.
And that started you on a life of crime, shoplifting, but not just taking little things. You were taking thousands of dollars worth of merchandise.
It got bigger and bigger because when you are in that type of life, the more you get away with, the more you think you can get away with. And my stages always grew to larger and to bigger things.
And this all happened, you spent a lot of time in the Virginia Department of Corrections as a juvenile and as an adult.
Correct. So for my juvenile years, probably I would say a total of 5 years total with all the juvenile sentence, and then of course with the prison sentence from 18, with the exception of a year and a half, until I was 28 years old in the Department of Corrections prison sentence.
And I hope I'm not giving anything away, but in the book you talk about the epiphany when you realize that this all goes back to the influence your mother had on you. What's your relationship like, if at all, with your mother now?
We don't have a relationship. We haven't spoken over 2.5 years, and it reached a point when I came home in 2000, it reached a point where, because I wasn't going to be involved in the hustle anymore, that frustrated her, and then she wanted all of my money, so we just clashed quickly. And I still tried to be a good child though, and it reached a point where I was never doing anything good enough for her because I wasn't doing the overflow that I was used to doing. And we just reached a point where I decided, for my sanity, I had to just cut all ties.
And what was the point in your life where you realized that the life of crime was not the life you wanted?
Actually, I was in prison on the second prison sentence. I had just got my second parole turned down, and I was going to kill myself. And I went into a deep, dark depression, probably the darkest depression I've ever had. And I was going to commit suicide, and a stranger, another inmate, saw me and pulled me to the side and said, you can't do your time like this. You have to do better. And he asked me, why are you in here? And I said, because I got caught. And he asked again. I said, I got busted, or something to that effect. And he asked again, and I got frustrated, so I got up to leave, and he yelled at me to sit down. And I sat down, and he said, I'm going to ask you again, and I want you to think about it. Why are you here? And it was at that moment, it was almost like time just went back to that day when I was 6 years old in that grocery store. Because up until then, I had never blamed her for anything. I figured I was doing whatever I needed to do. And of course, that brought me reward because I was getting everything I wanted, but I never faulted her for that. And even when I used to get sentenced, there used to be a Commonwealth attorney, John Greenbacker, in Halifax, Virginia, who used to just go in on her every time I would get sentenced. And he blamed her, and it would anger me because he was attacking my mother. And I would never blame her. And until that moment, it was that moment that made me realize that she was the root of all of that.
As people read this book, what are you hoping the takeaway is?
I want the takeaway to be that we're in Virginia right now, and Virginia is, we know it as a Commonwealth state. However, it's a rough state on ex-felons. They do not offer the opportunity for ex-felons to succeed when they come home. For example, Virginia now has a rule or a law that you have to complete all of your court costs and fines and pay everything off before you can get a driver's license. So for areas like Halifax, where I grew up, the biggest store there is Walmart, so there's no public transportation. The job market is almost none. Mm-hmm. So for those returning to those areas, how do you expect them to succeed? If you say you pay your debt to society, then how do you expect that to happen? Now, myself, I've been blessed. I really have been blessed. I have been very fortunate, but I worked hard to get to where I am.
Right, and I hate to cut you off,
Right.
but your rights were reinstated in 2004. You can meet best-selling author Victor L. Carrington as he reads and signs copies of his new memoir, Just When You Thought You Knew Me. It's this evening, 7 o'clock, at the Barnes & Noble in Short Pump at 11640 West Broad Street. It is an intriguing and very interesting story. Make time in your schedule to go do that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.